We had an excellent meeting, just concluded, with about 50 participants here in this room and another 20 or so participating by conference call. The entire spectrum of the rail companies, the pipeline, the transporters, the marketers, the distributors, and people who are aware of the consumer situation. I'd say the situation is very encouraging and much advanced over what it was a year ago. There are about, we told the consumers have really filled about 20 million gallons more propane fuel than they did a year ago. And that's expected by the time it's tallied for the summer early filled to be about 30 million gallons. So there's more supply has been distributed and is being stored. It also means that more supply is coming into the state. A number of the operations have increased their capacities, both the rail lines as well as others have large storage capabilities. That's going to mean additional supply on hand when the harvest begins, and then the winter weather follows that. The big variable, those are the big variables, of course. The weather as it affects the corn, how wet or dry it is, and also when it will be harvested, and then the winter that follows. So, you know, we're not out of the woods. Nobody is complacent, but I think there's been certainly a lot more focus on this, and I thank those in the industry and those in the associations and farm organizations and our agency heads, Commerce and Commissioner of Commerce, Mike Rothman, Commissioner of Agriculture, Dave Frederickson, and others have worked. Commissioner Stein, who is singled out for appreciation because of his expediting some of the permitting for some of these new storage facilities. So I think we're as in good shape as we could be today, and we'll continue to monitor the situation closely. We'll continue to bring this group together. They've been meeting throughout the spring and summer. We'll meet again probably in right after the election, unless there's a need to do so sooner. But everybody knows what they need to do, and so far there's every evidence that people are doing it. I don't know, Commissioner Rothman, Commissioner Frederickson, you want to add anything to that?
I think that sums up. We're working ahead of things.
Okay, well, not respond to questions on that or anything else.
How much more storage is there now?
Well, the consumers have purchased 20 million gallons more than what they call the early fill, the summer early fill. And Roger Leiter, the head of the association, believes that that number will be 30 million more by the time it's tallied.
But there's other storage out there too.
Well, there's the three spurs. What?
Conway, Kansas.
Come on up here, please.
Yeah. So, you know, we're getting indications. We're getting reports that the areas that have the storage, the reserving capacity, such as Conway, Kansas, and others, are ahead of last year. They've increased their percentages compared to last year at about 15%, which is a good thing for the region. In addition to those reserving and that storage capacity for the region, there's also increased storage capacity at several entities. So, for example, at CHS, they've increased their storage capacity in state Minnesota at 2 or 3 facilities. Purple Gas has also increased their storage capacity, as well as Randy Dooley's facility down in Benson. And those have also increased their ability to facilitate the rail delivery as well.
Governor, you've expressed some concern about the transport of the supply, and you have some concerns about rail and also the combination of farm stuff going out to the harvest. What is your biggest concern right now?
Well, the Cochin pipeline provided, well, we'd heard before 40% of our propane to Minnesota, and today we were told most recently it's been more 20 to 25%, but it's still a very, and that stopped bringing propane into Minnesota is reverse the direction of the pipeline to take crude oil from North Dakota eastbound. So that filling that gap has been my primary concern. And again, I was reassured today that everyone involved, the railroads, are conscious of their responsibility, and they're being questioned on a regular basis by CHS and others who need the supply brought to them. That will be tight, I expect, because of the overload on the rail system throughout the state with delivery of coal and delivery of movement of all the grain and very large harvest that's being forecasted, and then the oil by rail shipments. So you got them trying to speed up or increase their capacity to do 4 different things, and that's going to inevitably make it difficult to meet all those demands and all those obligations. But there's every indication that thus far they have been doing so, and that they recognize the need for them to be supply this industry sufficiently.
Can I ask it this way, Governor? If we get a cold snap, if we get a polar vortex for a month like we had last year, are you concerned that you're not going to be able to get these supplies to the people who need them?
Well, we did last year, and part of that was low-income energy assistance. We got the resources to people, and we got the supply. I expect if it's another severe winter, as Mr. Leiter said, if there had been a January thaw last year, and the rest of the weather remained the same, we would not have had the problem that we did. So if there's another unusually severe winter, and if there's another late harvest that requires a lot of propane for drying, then then we'll have a tight supply situation, and we're better prepared to handle that. We're monitoring it. We'll be unquestionably be aware of what's developing, positive or negative, farther in advance than we were before, and we'll be ready to take the necessary corrective action. So we made it through last year. It was tight squeeze, but it gave everybody a very loud wake-up call of the need to redouble their efforts and to be in communication and the like. And the participation today from people who came in from all over the state or on the phone indicates that there's a high level of awareness about the urgency of the situation.
You've pressed the railroads to do more, in particular on egg shipments, with the questions of how much crude oil is moving by rail. How can you raise those concerns and yet still be persuaded by the railroads that they're going to be able to move as much propane as you need, especially since this pipeline isn't moving any propane?
Well, I mean, that's a very good point. We raised that with them. I mean, there's no question that the rail transport system in this state is very seriously overextended with the oil transport, the propane, the moving grain, and then delivering coal to Excel and Minnesota Power, perhaps others, all of which are, I've heard complaints about, all which seem to be, strained, and to have all 4 of them requiring, additional transport, faster transport and the like is I mean, the rail lines are going to have to balance out very carefully how they prioritize, and again, it's hard to say now, without knowing when the harvest is going to start and some of the other variables, but they're going to have to be balancing that, and we're going to be on top of them very carefully. The NSF and CP was here today, right? And CN was on phone. My phone was not nearly as persuasive in their response. So we're going to be on them very rigorously to find out what their situation is, to monitor what they're doing, what they're not doing, to talk with others who are recipients of their supplies and services to see if they're getting what they need when they need it.
Are you going to get regular reports from the railroads on the car availability and that type of thing? And if you do, as governor, what can you do about it? How can you influence what the railroads do?
Well, by putting pressure on them and pointing out the deficiencies that exist. Again, you can't do that in the abstract, but once the situation is real, and they'll be aware of it as well. But as was said at the meeting, I think there was general agreement, the best communications are occurring at the local level between the whoever brings the supply, that area, I don't know the technical terms, but the supplier with the marketer and the consumer. I mean, all that, those thousands of interconnections, and as I said, everybody knows everybody else. But that communication network is the best, most effective way of making supply meet demand.
Governor?
We're going to try to have an overview of the whole situation so we can be aware if there's a danger developing in some region of the state or some aspect of it. But ultimately, the government doesn't deliver the fuel; the private sector does.
Governor, what did the propane manufacturer suppliers tell you about the cost of it this winter? What can Minnesotans expect to pay, and what can the state do to mitigate any of the shock?
One of the reasons that the early fill is being promoted, is recommended every year, and is being promoted strongly this summer, is that the price in the summer is usually at the seasonal low, and right now it's about 5 to 8 cents a gallon higher than it was a year ago. They don't keep precise numbers because there would be issues of trade violations for doing that, but they have a general sense that it's 5 to 8 cents a gallon more than it was a year ago, and that those prices will go up into the fall and winter. So encouraging people to early fill and providing them with the means to do so are both very, very important parts of the strategy. The trouble with the federal low-income assistance is that we don't get the money until from mid-October to mid-November, depending on when Congress acts, and we communicated with our delegation before, and we'll do again now, about the need to move that timetable as far forward as possible. But we don't have the authority within the federal government. I should correct that. The federal government won't allow us to get reimbursed if we were to take we were to advance state money ahead of the federal money. So we're constrained from doing that. So the long answer is that we don't have as much going on as we wish we did in terms of providing the means for people, lower income people especially, to really fill and take advantage of the prices and the supply availability. But we're pushing the federal government as hard as we can. We'll continue to do so, and we'll continue to, once we get that money, $102 million or so from the federal government, somewhere between October 15th and November 15th, and then we'll get that money out very immediately into the industry.
Governor, last year you activated, along with other agencies, the emergency hotline for propane. Are there contingency plans to do that again? Are you already thinking about that?
Well, you're right. We'll certainly monitor the situation, and if we perceive the need for that, we're going to continue this network of communications with the industry and folks. And as I said before, we're told that the best lines of communication to match supply and demand are local connections, so better that they are functioning effectively. But we're going to be all over this and monitor it very, very closely, and we'll do whatever the situation calls for.
So what should low-income people do if they see this forecast for temperatures going down this week even, maybe not?
Yeah, well, no, Northeast.
Yeah. So what should they do?
Well, if they don't have the resources, they're going to have to wait till they get the assistance, which again would not be as early as we would wish. But as soon as they do get it, they should take advantage of it and purchase supplies then. Is there anything else that
Yeah.
you can add to that?
In addition to that, Governor, they can if low-income folks haven't yet done it, they should apply, get their applications into the Department of Commerce or the local service agencies, the GAP agencies. Lutheran Social Services serves that function. So if they believe they would like to take advantage of it, they should apply now, be ready for that. And in addition, we're planning ahead to, as the Governor said, release those funds as quickly as we have them, and then look at making sure we do the crisis funding like we did last year up front, which is an additional $500, so people can have that at the beginning.
With, undoubtedly one of the worst propane shortages in the rearview mirror and, another possibly looming, what can or should the state do to try to address this on a more long-term basis?
Well, again, the state doesn't control the energy marketplaces or the industries. We have a coordinating role, and we certainly have a regulatory role in terms of safety and the like. But we're talking about, as I said, hundreds of thousands of transactions that occur every winter, and most of them are at that local level between the purchaser and the supplier, and the supplier gets supplied by somebody transporting and the like. So, I mean, to have a monolithic, Stalinistic kind of central control over that, first of all, would undoubtedly be less efficient, and at this point would certainly be unfeasible for the immediate situation that we're in. So, my experience, went through this before when I was commissioner in the Department of Energy and Economic Development, and we had a severe winter in 83, 84 that brought us for home heating oil to the same crisis point as we were in last year. We mobilized the industry. Everybody was aware. Everybody was taking the steps that they could to improve the situation, and we had a reasonable winter the next year, and no problem. So I'm not assuming that, but we're definitely in much better shape. Their industry's in much better shape. They've got their supplies out there in much better shape, and again, we're going to monitor the situation closely, and if there's a deficiency that appears, we'll know about it earlier than we did a year ago, and we'll take corrective action.
20 million to 30 million gallons, those are nice numbers. Can somebody put that in context for us? Is this a significant increase?
How much home heating? How much will it?
Well, the total for the total marketplace,
For the
130 million for the whole market. So it's
130 million
the whole market
gallons.
is what, agriculture and home, or what's the home?
for what I understand, it's $130 million, 130 million gallons.
So 20 to 30 million, and that's 20%, 25%.
Questions on other topics?
Yeah. So is there anything else on this subject?
Today, one of your 2010 opponents, Tom Horner, endorsed Jeff Johnson, one of this year's opponents. He said he thinks your budget has the state on the wrong track and that the tax increases should be repealed. Your reaction to that?
Well, he ran against me in 2010 and made some of those same accusations, so it doesn't surprise me that he's not supporting me this time. And he's a private citizen. He's entitled to his own opinion. And, Commissioner Johnson said that he was probably a member of the Tea Party last spring, and then he got the Republican endorsement, and now he's reaching out to the Independence Party, so I guess he's trying to broaden his base. But voters aren't going to look at who's associated with us in advisory capacities. They're going to look at the candidates, and they're going to look at our records. And I think somebody said he's going to go all Scott Walker on Minnesota is going to have a hard time persuading independent voters that he has a progressive, broad vision for the future of Minnesota.
Governor, you speaking of Jeff Johnson, he just wanted a quick follow-up. He said you seem to be going out of your way to make sure the fewest number of Minnesotans can see the two of you on the same stage at the same time, specifically addressing the lack of televised debates.
Oh, yeah, we have we agreed to 5 debates. We've offered 6. In Wisconsin, where they have a deadlock governor's race, they've agreed to 2 debates. If you look across the country, the number of debates that gubernatorial incumbents and candidates have, I mean, our 6, which we offered, they were reduced it to 5. Certainly ranks up there, and for them to eliminate NPR, our faces aren't on television there, but it's broadcast statewide. It's traditionally the final.
Why not primetime live statewide debates?
Because that's not the sole purpose of a campaign. The campaign is to go out and say what it is we stand for and what we do. I've got a record, and I've been going around articulating that record. I've seen very little evidence that he has, really a set of concrete proposals for the future of Minnesota. He's against all-day kindergarten. He's against, taxes on the wealthiest 2%. He's the increase on taxes there and like, but, you know, I mean, it's incumbent on the challenger to go out and make his case, and he doesn't even need to do that, he needs himself.
Governor, do you think that Jeff Johnson is a Tea Party Republican as he is being widely described by him?
He described himself. He said to a group of the Tea Party people that he said, I don't remember the exact quote, I can give you the exact quote, but you know, Tea Party people have been criticized as being kooks, wasn't the exact word, but like that. We are not, and I say we, and proudly we. So he was definitely telling this group of Tea Party activists that he was one of them.
He's a member of the Tea Party in your view.
Well, I'm just quoting, I will give you the exact quote of what he said. Let's get the exact quote.
Well, sure, but based on his position,
Well, I'm taking him at his word. I mean, if somebody self-describes himself as something, I'm not going to rebut it. And I think his positions on issues that say he's going to all Scott Walker in Minnesota, I think Governor Walker's positions, you know, right to work and tax cuts for the rich. I mean, look at the situation Wisconsin's in right now. They got a $1.8 billion projected deficit for the rest of this biennium and the next biennium. Their job creation is significantly behind ours. Our economy is one of the fastest growing in the country. Theirs is one of the slower growing. So people can decide for themselves if they want to adopt those kind of policies. They're not going to help middle-income Minnesotans and their families. I know that, and the evidence is they're not going to help the state on an overall basis. So, but people, again, should look at what we stand for, look at what we've done, look at what we propose to do, and I think that should be the basis for people's decisions. And debates serve a purpose, but you know, we're not going to do what we did 4 years ago with 30 plus debates.
Well, wouldn't that be your best way to expose him for what you say he is, if you were in a debate that everybody could see?
I don't feel the need to expose him. I'm out there saying that this is what my record is, this is what I've done, this is what I propose to do for the future of Minnesota. That's a standalone basis. Then if he does that on his own basis, then the people have an ample opportunity to compare our two positions on various issues and the like. That to me is a much more substantive way of presenting our candidacies and giving people the information to make evaluations than debates, which with all due respect to all you folks, end up with 30-second or 1 minute responses, which we've had, as we did last time, after 30 debates, we all could answer the question for the other candidates. So, I mean, they have a certain value, and we're going to engage in 5 of them. We would engage in 6 of them. That's more than most states. It's as many as Governor Plenty engaged in 2006 for his reelection. And I'm all over the state. The people are going to have plenty of opportunity to see me and talk with me and for me to listen to them. And I've got a full-time job. I've got a job I love, being governor of Minnesota. And whether I'm reelected or not, I have 4 months to serve in that term. And there's a lot going on in the state. You don't put the state on pause so you can have a campaign. And as you know, I've been going around on the floods up in northwestern Minnesota on the Red River Diversion Project, on oil tanker safety, on getting grain shipments expedited. So, all of that has taken me to different parts of the state and will continue to do so. And so I think people are having plenty of opportunities.
But in terms of the easiest access, the last debate's on Halloween night at 7 o'clock. There's another one on television at 9 o'clock on Sunday morning. Is that?
I didn't schedule them.
Did you have any input on, hey, we should get this at a time?
Well, you look at the ones we picked. We got, at the last minute, we got 3 television requests, and we picked one of them. I didn't make that decision. We have Almanac, which is traditional. We wanted to do ones in Greater Minnesota, so we have Forum and is it the chamber up there?
Forum News Service.
Yeah, but isn't there the chamber? Okay, so it's just Forum News Service there.
That's the one.
And Duluth is TV station, I believe it is, and it's the Duluth News Tribune and the chamber there. The one in Rochester is Post-Bulletin, I believe, in the chamber. So I mean, which is my experience. I mean, those are very high-level organizations and the, you know, what they put together. I didn't pick the schedule, the times for them. I was,
The state fair debates were traditional too at one point.
well, they weren't,
didn't have this year.
no, they didn't engage in that either in 2006. I mean, there have been some and not. You know, again, people can have plenty of opportunities to assess me, and my record is out there, and Commissioner Johnson puts his record out there and puts, most importantly, what he proposes to do for the state. And with the state, I think people are going to have plenty of opportunities. And we'll have 5 debates in the last 5 weeks where people can crystallize their views.
Does anybody have questions on any other topic?
Governor, is a special session now off the table in response to that memo you received today?
Well, it's our judgment that it's not necessary at this time, that we have sufficient funds on a timeline of distributing the state share with what the federal government will be doing, that we can use the $3 million or appropriated for that purpose, and some transportation funds that are available for that purpose, and make it until January. I don't think we envision that we could go till the end of next year's legislative session, but we could get to the beginning of it. If that situation changes, if we're drawing down those funds more rapidly than we expect, and we find that we're going to be short and hold anything up, then we'll reconsider and very possibly do a special session then. My goal, my commitment is we're not going to hold anything up because of the state funding availability, and so as long as we can meet that, we don't need a special session. And if we can't meet that, then we probably do.
Now, haven't local governments already paid a lot of this? So they're waiting to be reimbursed, if I understand right.
Some of it, you know, depends on their financial capability. Yes, a lot of them, you know, make the investments and then are reimbursed. FEMA's money is not contingent on the state's money, so and that's 75% of it. So that's the big piece. They're looking for a lot of local districts, townships, cities, and counties to request advances on their county aid, local government aid. The December payments have become, well, now for those who've requested it. So that's an additional source of cash up front. And, you know, that's where, again, they get to the point where they're looking for the state money and need that to either make the project go or to pay back for it. We'll be responsive.
So you don't think at this point that the state's borrowing money from the local governments if you wait till the regular session?
I mean, I hope we'd be borrowing money.
Well, so you're not paying them back?
They haven't, well, they haven't requested it. I mean,
No one's
first of all, the
requested?
projects haven't been defined. The projects are on the drawing boards. Those projects that are ready to go, we have emergency money on the transportation, which is probably the most urgent situations, and we have $5 million from the federal government with, you know, no strings attached to it. So we have the ability to fund, pay for projects, and I think we have a 10% match on those. MnDOT has some funds available, so if MnDOT starts running out and we're in the position of holding back projects going forward or reimbursing those, requesting reimbursement on a timely basis, then I will talk with the leaders, but look to have a special session. If the $3 million in the emergency fund proves to be inadequate for the needs, so people can proceed on a timely basis, so that they can have it reimbursed for what they've expended, I'll continue to bring that to the legislative leadership as well. At this point, that hasn't happened. At this point, none of the $3 million has none. I'm not aware that any of the $3 million has gone out because it hasn't been requisitioned.
Governor Dayton, kind of the gift that keeps giving for the attack ad makers is this story the Strip did a year ago predicting 140,000 Minnesotans would lose health care under the Affordable Care Act. Do you believe that's a true claim? It's being used against you and against Senator Frank?
Well, I haven't seen that particular attack ad, but I don't know where the number comes from. We have 300,000 people who obtained insurance through MNsure. We have the percent of uninsureds dropped by 40%. We're the second lowest state in the nation after Massachusetts, with the lowest number of percent of the population is uninsured. So I'd say more people are definitely gaining health coverage and a more affordable coverage and better health coverage through Insure than the other way around. But I don't know where that number comes from, so I can't comment on it directly.
One last question? Okay.
Thank you.